before I'd left home, a friend of mine said, "Hey, say hi to the Beatles for me,"
As a joke.
As a joke. One of the guys from Squeeze, Chris Difford, lived down the road from McCartney. To this day, I've met most of my heroes, but that one kind of takes the cake, just to be in, and he was in his pajamas, right? We're talking Sunday morning, super casual.
And what do you listen to for pleasure? Who do you listen to?
Well, one of my heroes, and this is more of a recent thing, is Warren Zevon, who died in the early 2000s. And I just started getting into him around the time when I heard he was sick. Because I always knew about him, but I only really knew, Werewolves of London or something, which I liked, but it was kind of a goofy song. But then around that time, I started just zeroing in on him, and to the point where I got kind of obsessed. And I think, especially during the pandemic, his music has really got me through, because there's something very heroic about his songs, and almost he's got this sort of pirate energy. He had a pretty crazy life, and he was really out of control for a long time. And he's such a great command. You talk about lyrics. This guy's lyrics are so great. His point of view, his sense of humor, his command of the English language. So he's someone I listen to. Probably drive Colleen up the wall with him, actually. But I listen to him a lot. And I heard he may be getting inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame finally, way overdue. So, but I love him. I love a lot of the same people I've always loved, like the Kinks. I still listen to, and I love Lowell George, and I still listen to a lot of Gordon Lightfoot.
You've done a lot of collaborations over the years. Now that we're emerging from the pandemic and people are getting out there, do you have anything in the works that you'd like to try with people you might have worked with before or people you haven't?
The only thing I really want to do is, I wrote a book called Dear Life, and I wrote a musical based on the book, and I would really love someday for that to be either a movie or on stage, because I think the songs are really good. And I was actually in talks with a movie company for a while. I don't know where it stands now, but they really liked it, and we were on the same page in terms of how we saw it. And where it left off is they were trying to see if they find the right screenwriter, and that was back in the summer, and I haven't really heard, so I don't know if they're still into it or not. But that, for me, would be, hopefully before I die, I'd love to see that in production somehow.
We talked earlier about how some of the great musicians admire your work, and I want you to tell me the Paul McCartney story in a second, but I want to share a little story with you, because I had the chance to interview Paul McCartney, and I nearly blew it. So I was the CBC radio correspondent in London way back when, and it was the 20th anniversary of Sgt. Pepper's, I think it was.
Okay.
And I was invited, all the foreign press were invited.
That would have been 86, right?
Yeah,
86.
Yeah. I was invited to Abbey Road Studios, and I was a Beatles fan from way back, and here I was going to Abbey Road Studios, and here he was with Linda at the time, and I had the chance to ask him a question, and I couldn't get the words out of my mouth. I was so freaking nervous. And he made some sort of joke about the cat's got your tongue. So I kind of blew it. What was your experience with Paul McCartney?
Well, it was kind of funny, because I was heading over to England for the first time. My record had just been released there in early '96, and I had, my album was out in North America, but it died here, and the label was almost about to drop me.
That was Interscope.
Yeah. And then Elvis Costello held it up on a magazine, which sort of created interest all around the world. So I'm going over to England, and again, I sort of got this hero's welcome. Even the band Squeeze opened up for me, just sort of a surprise opener. It just seemed so surreal. And one of the members of Squeeze, because I went on tour opening for them, one of the guys from Squeeze, Chris Difford, lived down the road from McCartney. And, and I was like, "Oh, have you ever been up?" And he goes, "Oh, yeah, I've been over there for breakfast." And then he goes, "Maybe we'll go there tomorrow." And I was like, "Oh." So I couldn't hardly even sleep, because I was so excited at maybe the possibility. And because, before I'd left home, a friend of mine said, "Hey, say hi to the Beatles for me,"
As a joke.
As a joke. So the next morning, Chris woke up. I was already up, and he was he was like, "Oh, what do you think? Should I call them?" So he did, and I heard Linda's voice over the phone. "Oh, hey, Chris," and at the time I was in all the magazines over there, all the Q and Mo. So they knew me. I don't think they knew my music, but they'd heard good things or something from like Elvis or whatever. So they invited us over for breakfast at a table very much like the one we're sitting at, except I was there, Paul was there, and then Linda sat at the end, and Chris was over here. And I was nervous, obviously. But when we got to his house, Paul was already at the door, sticking his head out the door, giving us like the thumbs up type of thing.
To come in.
Come in, and he goes, "Oh, you're Ron," whatever. And we go in, and I sit at the table, and I couldn't look at him. I was just sitting there looking at my tea, and Linda came and was very, very friendly, and was just like, "Oh, you're from Canada. I was a big fan of Gordon Lightfoot," and so little by little, I was able to look at Paul, and we talked, and I mostly asked him about Wings, and he ended up playing me some tracks on his stereo from his album that he was working on, and when I got back to the table, he pulled out a guitar and started playing me some new songs, which was unbelievable, and he asked his son to get me a guitar. So all of a sudden he's looking at me, and I didn't know what. I played him a song that he wrote called "Listen to What the Man Said," and then I did one by the Beach Boys that I heard he liked the Beach Boys. So all in all, we were there. We had breakfast. We were there for maybe 3 hours, and we left, and I just was like, to this day, I've met most of my heroes, but that one kind of takes the cake, just to be in. And he was in his pajamas, right? We're talking Sunday morning, super casual, sheepdogs running around. His kids were there. It was crazy.
At the end of the day, everybody puts their pants on one leg at a time.
That's right. That's right.
And they're there because they didn't say, "Oh, hey, I'm going to be a famous musician." They're there because of their art, their music.
Yeah. I mean, I never felt... he's Paul McCartney, and he knows it, but he didn't... I never felt...
He didn't rub it in.
It wasn't like Kiss the Ring or anything like that, So it was very... it was very casual, and I was nervous, but again, Linda helped me to sort of relax, I think.
Now, are you at the level, Ron, now where you can almost dictate what you want to do yourself? Like you're at that, you could pick up the phone and call up Paul McCartney or Elvis Costello or Rod Stewart. Like, do you have
not really
urges like that, or you just want to keep to yourself?
No, I've never seen or heard from McCartney since that one day. I mean, Elvis has become a friend, and we email sometimes. I don't even know if I have his number anymore, but Elton John is someone that I chat with him sometime on email, and I was a member of his fan club when I was 10. So,
wow.
So some of these people, but I'm not in a position where I can really call. I don't think call some of these people out of the blue. I would feel too like I was imposing or something. But they've all been really nice to me, and.
But you've done some duets you did one with Leslie Feist, right? Was that a duet with her?
Yeah. We wrote a song called Brandy Alexander. Right. That she recorded, and then I ended up doing a version on my album. And she did also covered Secret Heart.
Right.
She's one of my favorite people in the whole Canadian music industry. There's a lot of posers, and she's the real deal.
Real deal.
She's really nice, and she doesn't. She's never changed, She's just very kind, very warm. So.
And her brother has a neat story. He's works at NASA now.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was involved in the space program, and he somehow got a job working down at NASA. So that's an interesting family. So
yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah.